All right, welcome. So today's video is strategy versus effort, working smarter and harder. Today's video is all about the power of strategy when utilized in accordance with effort versus being all effort or all strategy, right? So using the two together in order to create the best possible results. So if you want to work with me one-on-one to improve your life through holistic self-improvement and become elite in whatever field you are pursuing, you can go ahead and send me a DM on Instagram. It'll be the first or second link in the description. Results in business, in sports, whatever it is you are pursuing, they come from organized effort. So what does this mean? Organized effort means, yes, we are putting in effort, we are working, we are putting in the energy, right? But organized effort is specific to having an actual plan, having a strategy, having a routine or a protocol for you to put the effort through in order to get the result you want. So what does this look like? When we have a structure, when we have a routine, we have a organized or a structured framework for how to put our effort towards our goals. What this means is when we have a goal in business, let's say, we have a plan or a routine for our day in order to optimize for our efforts to be put towards the most effective work in getting that result. So what I mean is we will be putting our effort through this structure, through this plan, through this protocol in order to get the result, instead of just working aimlessly with no intention, with no awareness of what you're working on, what the intention of that work is and where it is meant to go, or having an actual plan or a process for how you're going to get from step A, which is starting the business, to the end goal, which is actually profiting from the business. Results are the end product of organized effort. When we actually take the time to process what it is we're trying to accomplish, think about what it is we're trying to accomplish, and then organize a routine or a structure or a protocol out of that awareness in order to create the best possible results, in order to have the best framework for us to then put forth the effort in moving the needle towards that goal, towards that accomplishment, and actually achieve that goal in the end. All right, so why you can't progress through effort alone. The reason why effort alone isn't going to be enough to actually allow you to see real progress, allow you to create the result that you're looking for, is simply because that effort without intention isn't really going to go anywhere. So if you are grinding, if you are working, if you are training, if you are pushing the needle and you are pushing yourself, right, to work and grind and strain for the result, but you have no plan, you have no process, you have no protocol, you have no framework for how you're actually going to achieve that goal, then all of your efforts are completely meaningless. They're void of actual substance, of actual tangible substance, because you don't have the intention behind them. You don't have an actual process by which you are putting this effort through in order to get you from point A to point B, right? You want to actually progress. You want to see the result in your business. You want to see the result in your sport, but you're just throwing random pieces of work out there. You're just spending hours and hours a day working on projects that don't actually matter to the goal that you have, right? Versus when you have a plan, when you have a process, when you have a protocol, there is an actual framework for how you're going to achieve your goal. Therefore, the efforts you're putting in are based on this framework. So with the same amount of effort, you can actually now achieve the goal significantly faster because the efforts you are putting in are based on this framework and actually have tangible results because they are based around the intention of getting you to that goal, of driving you towards that goal in the most effective way possible. But then why can't you progress through strategy alone, right? Even then, strategy by itself, if you have the strategy laid out, but there's no action, but there's no effort, but there's no energy being moved, then you're not going to get anywhere either. You have to have both elements. If you think of childbirth, right, the same idea applies, right? You have the masculine, the sperm, you have the feminine, the egg, right? The masculine sperm is the blueprint, which impregnates the egg. The egg is the fertile energy, we could say, that grows and develops and nurtures the manifestation of this being, of the human being, right? So we have the blueprint of the human, and we have the energy that nourishes it and brings it into reality, When the two come together, we have a human being. And the same thing goes with our goals. When we have a goal, if we take the framework, right, which is the blueprint, and then we apply it through our work, through our effort, which is the egg or the thing that nurtures said blueprint into existence, we can then get the result using strategy and effort together, right? So this is how we're actually going to put the two together and therefore get the best possible results that we can. So the first thing is creating the plan, right? You have to start by actually creating this plan. And the way that I always say to start creating the plan is to set the goal. This is the best way to start because once you have the goal defined, then it's pretty easy to create a framework for how to achieve the goal. But when the goal isn't clearly defined, there's no way that we can actually create a solid framework to achieve it. So you have to set your goal and you have to be as clear as possible about what your specific goal is. Then we take that goal and we create our framework. We identify what are the most important pieces of work required to actually get this result. And then, what blocks of my day am I going to create in order to optimize for and focus my energy on these specific tasks. And then, of course, you can also lay out a strategy, right? So how do you actually plan to make this work result in your goal income or your goal result? So this can look like, for my business, for example, I have my upload structure, which is one part of this strategy. And then I have my actual paid products, and all of it comes together into one solid framework for the business that I'm creating. Meaning that my points of effort would be creating content and scripting content. And then the main framework for how those two things are going to get me the result I want is by creating free YouTube content, putting out value, and those who resonate with the value can then buy into the paid programs, right? And everything is built together as a solid framework. It's a complete strategy. And by following and executing on each of the steps, I will eventually get my result, or I'll get somewhere along the way and I can then analyze, reassess, and readjust the plan accordingly. And the next thing is executing on the plan. Now we actually have to go ahead and execute. Now we actually go ahead and put in the effort. So we've laid out the process, we've laid out the plan, we've laid out the framework for how we're going to achieve this goal. Now we actually just follow the framework from step 1 all the way until step 100. And this is where it can get difficult for a lot of people. You don't want to get some momentum going and then throw yourself off the plan. You have to stick to the plan. You have to stick to the process that you've laid out in order to achieve this goal. Otherwise, you'll become scattered and you'll become lost at some point in the journey. So stay consistent, stay focused, and continue executing on all of the steps accordingly, right? Even if you make a mistake, you just stop on that step and you work at it. And you work at it until you get it right, and then you keep moving through the structure, through the framework to achieve that goal. And if you trust the framework and follow it through to the end, most of the time you will at least achieve somewhat of the result you're looking for. It may not be the big result you're looking for, but you will at least achieve some of the result. At which point you can then analyze and adapt your structure, which is the next step in the framework. You have to analyze and then adapt your structure as you go, right? So your strategy has to grow with you. You can't expect the first strategy you come up with as a broke teenager or a broke younger 20-year-old and think that you are going to have the expertise to create the best possible structure for your specific goal. You're not a millionaire yet, so you can't possibly have the best framework for becoming a millionaire. But if that framework grows and evolves with you as you progress closer and closer to your goal, then you will actually create a framework that is solid, that is applicable to other people to create a similar or the same result. So now, as you go, you analyze flaws in your plan, you analyze things that are working and why they're working, right? You analyze roadblocks and you adapt your structure to optimize for these rooms or for these areas of improvement that you've now identified. And then the more you refine your process, the more you can just focus on increasing the amount of effort and the amount of energy that you focus into these tasks and these steps within your framework in order to maximize your results. So once you have a framework that works, all you have to do is increase the amount of effort and energy that you put into said plan, protocol, and framework, and then you can maximize your results from that. In order to get the best possible results, we need to be working smarter and harder, right? We can't just focus on effort and expect the result. We can't just focus on strategy and expect the result. We have to optimize for the best possible strategy, working at our smartest capacity, while also working our hardest, right? While also putting in the most effort. We have to put in the time, we have to put in the effort, right? We have to concentrate and focus our energy. And this is what this framework or this plan gives us, is a place to concentrate and focus our energy so that we can then get the best possible results. That is all I have for you guys. If you did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave a like, and you can also comment down below anything you may have learned or a summary of the video. I always like reading your guys' takes on what value was extracted from the video. So if you did enjoy, go ahead and like and comment. You can also subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I do educational content for people into self-improvement, self-development, and who just want to optimize their lifestyles for the best possible progress, results, and happiness and fulfillment. So if that's something you're interested in, you can subscribe. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can go ahead and DM me on my Instagram, as I said in the beginning of the video. Should be the first or second link in the description. Just go over to my Instagram page. You can send me a DM there, and we'll talk. But that is all I have for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope it was helpful. That's all for me, and I'm out of here. Peace.